The ultimate reality is the next young African American male is dead.
Why do you care more about Ahmaud Arbery than you do all the deaths in Chicago on the black-on-black crime? Because that's a huge statement.
Here we go. The truth of the matter is, another life is gone. Am I next? And everybody know that there are some serious issues that is going on in America today. Not just COVID-19, not just coronavirus, but racism. And so therefore, I just, as it is my burden, as we begin to talk, as we begin to get very, very transparent and very truthful in the situation, I look at myself and I look at the other guys from the past, Trayvon Martin, Mike Brown, Alton Jeffries, Sandra Bland, so and the list goes on and on. If you look at me right now, I look just like them. And I just told you my story to say, when you think about the Mike Brown in Ferguson, well, the guy was trying to fight the cop. The guy, I had that mentality. If he was, if he wasn't, I had that then. And I'm saying, you can see him, you can see me, and we relate totally. You got me? With what is taking place today, I know I'm fully changed. I know my mind was there, and I know that I am somebody totally different. I'm adding value to my community. I'm adding value to people on a day-to-day basis, not just black people, but all people. And where we are today and what's going on, the fact of the matter is this. As an African American male, I have to ask myself a real question every single day I get up and put on my clothes to get ready to go out of the door to do whatever. And the question is this: am I next? I'm not just saying this because it sounds good, but as the numbers and as the tragedies and as the casualties continue, I'm thoroughly convinced and I'm fully persuaded for most of America that a tragedy is not a tragedy until the tragedy walk up to your doorstep. And so my thing is, what can we do? Not only culturally, but even in Christianity. What can we do culturally and Christianity to ease the vibe, to ease the feelings of fear, to ease the thoughts that comes across my mind? Not what can we just say, brother, it's gonna be okay, and it happened then, because you can say that, but until you walk a mile in my shoes, you really don't understand. So I guess the question is, as we begin this conversation and we begin to, the dialogue, the highly effective dialogue, what could be the tools? What can we do in order to, I'm your Christian brother, I love you, you love me. The essence of what we do is based on love. If I'm hurting, you should be hurting. If I'm fearful, you should be fearful. So the question becomes, what do we do? Not what do we say, but what do we do in order to ensure that I don't have to walk out of the door saying to myself, am I next?
What do we do? What are your thoughts? I know we've talked about what we could say, and we share it on many occasions. But what are some things that because I know from being black what I could do, but what could you do?
I'll tell you, James, first of all, the short answer is I don't know.
Yes, sir.
I'm not going to go into that, but I'm going to tell you my real quick story about how I even arrived here to be a part of this group.
Okay.
Pete Key came and spoke to the Rotary Club, and it was about the time Ferguson was going on, and he was dynamite. I mean, if you guys have ever heard Pete speak, he was fantastic. And so I went home and told my wife about it and I said, do you remember Pete Key? And she said, oh yeah, I remember Pete Key. And I said, well, he came and spoke today. And she said, oh yeah. She said, he goes and talks to the schools and all this kind of stuff, and was telling me about things that you did. And I said, you know what, I'm going to reach out to him. I'm going to take him to lunch. So what do you think he'd have a conversation with me about Ferguson? Because she and I had a lot of conversation about Ferguson.
Yes, sir.
And we're just saying, I was like, I don't understand why everybody is so upset about that. The guy went and tried to take a gun from a cop and he got shot. No kidding. And I don't get it. I mean, wouldn't you think that's what's going to happen? And so Pete and I went down, and I'm sure he was thinking, what in the world is this guy wanting to talk with me about? But I took he and his wife to eat, and I said, and I kind of gave him the story and said, you know, look, I have no idea why Ferguson's going on, but I'll tell you what I do not get. Something's up, because the black community and the white community have watched the exact same thing and have drawn diametrically opposed conclusions from it. Why?
Yeah.
I don't get it. And so from that one question is where Pete and I started having a series of conversations, because honestly at the time, I just wanted to know. And I didn't really have my association with black people was either at work, was me being on the Civil Service Board, working with police officers and firefighters. But for the most part, I didn't have any close friends that were black that I could really just go and say, hey, I want to talk to you about this race thing. I mean, that's just not, that's just not a conversation. That's just not a conversation. You know?
Even when he asked the question, he said, I just want to know about Ferguson. I'm like, okay, we went from Rotary Club, lunch, tell me about Ferguson.
Are you saying Rotary Club and Ferguson are similar?
So that's how it started for me. And so what honestly, I just wanted to know. I did not have anybody except for talking heads on TV that I could, and I didn't identify with any of them.
Yes, sir.
Be like, these guys, they just hollered at each other. Nobody's really trying to understand the other person. And so Pete and I shared, and we took every single issue, whether it was policing or whether it was
politics.
Sports, anything that supposedly divides.
Affirmative action.
Yeah.
We had about 5 or 6 different topics, and we just, how do you see this?
Okay.
And it just really started me. The more we talked, the more I realized, you know, we are saying the same things. We just don't see it quite the same way. Mm-hmm. But gosh, we're not any different than each other. We just want to go live our lives and do our thing. And what I started to realize, a lot of it was because of Pete, and a lot of it was from my wife, because she holds me accountable a pretty good bit. But she would encourage me, because I would say, you know, Pete and I talked about policing today, and it's really different, because when he would tell me stories about either being stopped by the police, and I'm like, I've been stopped by the police. Okay, so what's the big deal? Well, if you're a black man getting stopped by the police at night on a road, okay, yeah, I'd be more nervous. And I'm like, God, that's not right. It's not supposed to be like that. Yeah. You know, the whole justice is supposed to be blind, but the bottom line is it's not. It's not. And really trying to listen to Pete, not with the intent to respond, but to really understand where he's coming from. And to really start to try and see the world. My wife in particular challenged me. She said, when you go to Walmart tonight, I had to go for something. She said, just notice how you respond when black people are coming down the aisle. Is it any different, or is it the same? Then notice and think about what it would be like if you're a black man walking down the aisle and how people respond. And so I just did that one night, and I said, you know, okay, and I had to really think about things that I might normally be unconsciously thinking. I tried to bring it consciously, and I would just, you know, I'd see a black person coming down the aisle shopping, and I was like, okay, do I feel any different? I don't think I feel any different. I'm like, God, do I? I mean, I had to really, I'm just saying, but it really did. It was one of those things but really trying to understand and really trying to, again, see the world through somebody else's eyes. And then there was a whole lot of things that happened as a result of Pete and I's relationship as it developed. And we started getting to where we can trust each other, that it really started opening my eyes up to saying, you know, the hard part is not sitting here having a conversation with Pete or having a conversation with you about race. The hard part is confronting myself and saying, gosh, I'm not a bigot, am I? Like, okay, I'm not a bigot. I don't go around saying I hate black people or I hate Jewish people or I don't hate anybody.
Gotcha.
But then looking and go, okay, do I have some prejudice when a black person is walking down the aisle or if it's somebody that I don't know? And the answer is yes. And that's tough to confront in your own self and say, okay, you know what? Why then? And how do I overcome that? So that now, and I just talked a lot trying to answer your question about what
the
we
last
do.
two things you said, why do I have it? And how do I overcome that? That's
a lot of it, and I believe the first part is awareness. I believe that we have to go in and we have to, here's the way I really think it's going to happen. The way that I think that the best chance we have of overcoming racism is to do what Pete and I have done. Go find somebody who is a different race than you are and have a conversation with them about race. Have a conversation that is tough to have about affirmative action, about policing, about the O.J. Simpson trial, about anything, whatever it is.
Man, we had a lot of conversations.
We did have a lot
about economic equality.
Right.
But just
absolutely.
all of it,
Absolutely.
all of it, and then say, how do you see this? How do I see this? And does it come from a place of race? In a lot of cases it does. And when you say, okay, why? And you really start trying to see the world through someone else's eyes, that's when you start confronting it in yourself and say, okay, I've got to start thinking about that and really make some changes. Externally, nobody would tell a difference, but just internally to say, you know,
not to cut you off, but even when you said that first meeting when I said unarmed black male shot and killed by the police, what's the first thing come to your mind? And he said, what did he do?
Wow.
And I said, so what could he have done to get shot and killed on the street, not have a judge, not have a jury, not have a trial, to get killed? So what could he have done to get that? So he's thinking, what did he do? And I'm like, what could he have done to do that? And that's why our conversation started. Well, he's like, I never looked at it.
So it's like
that.
neither one of us want anybody to get shot. Yeah. But I'm sitting there going, well, I wonder what he did, because the police wouldn't just haul off and just shoot somebody. And police saying, okay, well, why did they?
Let me ask this question: what if the entire scope is changed? What if it is a black person that is shooting a white person, whatever, for no apparent reason? What would be the question right off the top then?
If it's two black police officers?
Yeah, if it's two black, it's one black police officer
or one black police officer,
and
they shoot a
white
person.
The same question you asked him if it was flipped.
See, I mean, honestly, I don't know how everybody else would see it. Yeah. I would say the same thing. I'd say, well, I wonder what he did. I mean, I would not. It would not be the same where I would. I mean, it would be the same. Mm-hmm. For my purposes, I'd be like, well, the guy obviously did something. And, must have done something.
That's a good point, because I got lots of opinions on it, but we make decisions and we make judgments based on patterns, which creates our worldview. And so those patterns help our brains make decisions quickly. So when we describe people, we describe people based on the simplest terms possible, based on those patterns we've had. And so what he's saying is his worldview, his pattern is the police are the good guys.
Absolutely.
Whoever the criminal is the bad guy.
Absolutely.
A lot of times in the black community, it's the opposite worldview.
Yes.
And so we live in a day and age where there is no gray areas. Everything's diametrically opposed.
Black or white.
The worldviews are completely opposite. And so the way we handle it at our church, which is very diverse, especially in election year and during the Ferguson thing, is I want to offend both viewpoints. Like, that's the goal, because both are on the polar opposites.
Yes, sir.
Right? So you have, when the Ferguson thing happened, even this thing is a little bit different. Ferguson happened, you had half the churches, Black Lives Matter, down with the cops.
Absolutely.
The other half is like, what the crap is wrong with them? we're for the cops,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah.
So you're on two polar extremes.
Absolutely.
So my goal is to offend both of them.
Absolutely.
Because if I can offend them, it brings that awareness that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, okay, well, do you think a white cop walks up to a car late at night with two young black men in it differently than he would two young white men? Like, well, yeah. Okay, that's probably prejudice. So why is that? Well, so that's one offense. Now I'm just offending all the white people in the room. The other side, maybe you can see the police officer's anxiety cranks up, his adrenaline cranks up, because he's making a decision based on a pattern that the black communities help create through violent hip-hop music and
Absolutely.
violent culture.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
And so maybe the culture is what is intimidating the cop more than the person is. And so when you start offending everybody, hopefully you get to this point of just a little bit of the scales falling off.
That's the thing. That's what's got to happen, in my opinion, is that you have to have two people who want to understand. If it's about, hey, you got two people who want to be understood, forget it.
Yeah.
But they got to be shaken before they want to get to that place. Like you were shaken.
Right.
So,
Oh, yeah.
like if you're asleep, many times you got to be shaken to be woken up.
There's no doubt.
And that's
so I think for what you're doing, keep doing it.
So you gotta
So, but it's two different worlds. You got Mike Brown and Ferguson with the opposition with the cop, but then you got Ahmaud Arbery right here that's running through a neighborhood.
Okay.
Just on a jog.
One world is Saturn, the next one is Jupiter.
Okay.
The end result for both worlds is death to a black man. You got me?
Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, that sometimes our differences lie on the fact that we are ignorant to other cultures based on our lack of exposure to one another. I'm guilty of this. Usually it's more natural for us to be around our own culture more than being around other cultures. Because of that, it's easy for us to stereotype other cultures. For example, if you're white and you're not around black culture and you don't understand hip hop, you could very well form a bias in your mind about the hip hop culture. But in retrospect, when I think about it, when I look back at Timothy McVeigh, the Oklahoma City bomber and Dylan Roof, the white supremacists that killed 9 black people in a church in Charleston, South Carolina, both individuals look like your average white man. In my mind, is it right for me to form my own prejudice and create a racist perspective to start believing that all white men are dangerous? The same way that some white people say that they have formed their opinion that black people who are dressed in a certain way, they are dangerous because that's what they look like in the hip-hop community. Watch this. We all have to be careful about certain things that we see in other cultures. That we don't take those things and stereotype a group of people based off one specific incident or scenario. So now, the black community that's dressed in a certain way, all they do is gangbang and dishonor the police? Or as for the white community, all they do is go out and bomb buildings and go in churches and shoot up innocent Christians who are going to church to worship. Therefore, each and every one of us must be careful to look at individuals as individuals and not allow one individual to represent an entire race of people. As for me, I want to be a part of the solution, so we won't see another hashtag in the black community or in the white community. And it's one thing that we can make a valued effort at doing, and it's this. Individually, you and I, let's make a conscious effort to see every single person through the eyes of God's perspective. And if each and every one of us do that, then we won't have another hashtag in the white community or in the black community. I'll see you all next week as we continue this discussion in part 2.